Okay, so we have the romantic marriage and the rescue marriage. The third type of marriage that Wallerstein and Blakesley said they found was the companionate marriage. Now, again, remember, all of these marriages have probably all of these qualities. These are just the ones that are kind of predominant. So, in the companionate marriage, it seems that the relationship is not so much built around passion and sex. It's not built around saving us from our past or from our pain. It's built around this kind of friendship, this thing that works, that's comfortable, that feels good to us. It's very egalitarian, lots of focus on equality. We're partners, we're equal, we do things together, we work things out together, we solve problems together, we complete projects together. It's a companionate marriage. That sounds like, again, could sound a little negative. You could think, well, I don't want to be with someone who's just my. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my chair. I don't want to be with someone who's not also my lover and my sex partner and all of those sorts of things. But the truth is, we all have areas of our marriages that are kind of maybe a little stronger than others. And so in this situation, there's just a sense that the friendship part, the partnership part of the marriage, is stronger than the passionate and sensual part, stronger than the healing and comforting part. And that's probably okay. Fourth kind of marriage that they identified was what they called a traditional marriage. This marriage is just what you would think it would be, where there's a clear kind of gender-related division of roles and responsibilities. Men do certain things, women do certain things. We have certain jobs. Probably a husband is the most significant, if not the only, earner in the family. The woman is probably responsible for caring for the home and taking care of the children primarily. There's some hierarchical things that are there, not nearly so focused on an egalitarian relationship. Maybe a sense of equality, but not maybe no overlapping roles, no blurring of responsibilities really. Now again, this might sound to some of us who are kind of on the more liberal end of that spectrum kind of like a negative thing. But of course, if we're honest, we know even the most liberal of us have to admit that there are lots of people who have this kind of very traditional relationship, and they're very happy and very successful in it. So I think that one of the things that we see here is that, and of course you could come up with your own kinds of names for these kinds of marriages, and we could come up with some other types also. But in this group of happy, healthy marriages, this is what they found. Now, a couple of caveats here to throw in at the end. First of all, this is really important. They found that all of these marriages get renegotiated as people grow and as the relationship matures. So you might start out as a very romantic couple, but you might move into something that's much more companionate. Or you might start out very traditional, but by the time your kids are all maybe in school and the wife goes back to work or goes and gets a doctoral degree or something, all of a sudden you're not quite so traditional anymore. You might even move from being a relationship that's very companionate that grows into more of a passionate and sensual relationship over time. So there are lots of different things that can happen, and Wallerstein and Blakesley found that these good, healthy relationships tended to morph a little bit over time, to change and develop and grow into something new and different very often. The other thing was that each one of these kind of had a corresponding what they called an anti-marriage, meaning that and I kind of alluded to that a little bit, that some of these kind of have an initial negative sounding kind of connotation to them. For example, the romantic marriage could be a marriage, the anti-marriage of that would be one that's very, seems very passionate and sensual and sexual, but is pretty shallow. Where if we look good and we have good sex, then we're crazy about each other. But if somebody gets too fat or too bald or too wrinkled, or you know, something more drastic happens, like someone has a physical handicap or something to where they can't do something sexual, or they're not as traditionally attractive to us as they were in the past, then we lose our marriage and we lose our love for each other because we can't be that passionate anymore. As I said, the rescue marriage has kind of a downside or an anti-marriage aspect, in that you can have those people who are pitiful and dysfunctional and unhealthy who come together and say, well, we can take two really unhealthy lives and put them together and it'll make one healthy couple, and that doesn't work at all. The companionate marriage even can be, the anti-marriage side of that would be a marriage that's kind of void of passion, void of sexual relationship, void of comfort and healing and sensual stuff, a relationship that's just a friendship, just a partnership with no passion attached to it. And of course, the traditional marriage has the healthy side, but the unhealthy side is that very domineering male kind of marriage where a woman doesn't have any freedom and doesn't have any choice, and everything is governed by specific rules, and if you don't follow the rules, then you're in trouble. So 4 kinds of marriages that they saw, all with kind of a corresponding negative side if it goes too far or if it's not done in a healthy way. Now, the other thing that they found, and the bulk of their book is really about this, the things that are on this slide. They found that within these good marriages, there were 9 psychological tasks that people completed within that were kind of universal throughout all of these good marriages. Things that people generally needed to figure out how to accomplish, and they don't always accomplish them in the same ways, but everybody who has this good, healthy marriage kind of seems to do this. So the first one is to separate emotionally from the family of origin. That's kind of commonsensical to most of us. We understand that one of the significant ideas of marriage is that you leave your family of origin and you create a new family. Of course, that's a difficult thing to do for a lot of people. It's more difficult for some of us than it is for others. Sometimes we think even that if you have a really bad or unhealthy family of origin, that it'd be easier to disconnect from them and create your new family. That may not be the case at all. You may be much more liable to be torn if you have that unhealthy family. On the other hand, we could speculate, well, if you have a really healthy, good family of origin, your transition into marriage will be really easy. Also not true. So there's just difficulties kind of across the spectrum for people. And as we mentioned before when we talked about young adults, it's dependent upon the parent's degree of comfort, the parent's ability to deal with ambiguity, the parent's own marriage, lots of different things. But people in healthy, good marriages figure out how, and sometimes it takes a while, to separate from their family of origin. Second thing, people who have healthy relationships seem to build togetherness over time by creating intimacy and carving out individual autonomy. Now this is pretty big here for one little sentence. Building togetherness by doing 2 things that are a little bit bipolar: creating intimacy with each other, but also carving out individual autonomy. It's difficult for couples, especially young couples, sometimes to figure out how to build intimacy and still maintain individuality and autonomy. How needy is one person for the other? How much time should we spend together? How much time should we spend apart? Is it okay for one of us to go out on a Friday or Saturday night with our old friends? Is it okay to for someone to go for a weekend trip with somebody else? Is it okay for us to have separate leisure activities? All of those things, should we do things together? Do we always have to be together? Can we be apart? One of the basic kind of sexual things that happens with young couples is figuring out, how do we negotiate physical intimacy or not? When can we say we don't want to do it? And it's not a rejection of you, it's just that I'm not interested in it. All kinds of stuff about developing intimacy. How much do I have to share with you? Do I have to tell you everything I think? Or can I pick and choose what I share with you? It's a difficult thing to navigate, but we have to have both things. We have to have intimacy with that other person, physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual maybe. We have to have that intimacy, but we also have to figure out how to maintain a self and how to have some level of individual autonomy. If not, then we end up very often with somebody who's going to be really unhappy. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll come back and do another one.